The Varnkai High Fleet, glimmering with obsidian plating and pulsar engines, breached Earth's orbit on the 11th day of Earth's calendar cycle. Their war record spanned centuries and constellations. No species had resisted more than 10 planetary cycles. Their invasion logs listed Earth as primitive, fractured, ecologically unstable, perfect for a swift conquest. General Vielorix, a being of carbon-titan weave and neural alloy, addressed the bridge. Deploy ground forces. Establish climate-control domes. Begin planetary pacification. Their warships fired seismic silencers. Anti-tectonic rods plunged into Earth's crust. Troop dropships surged toward the continents, over forests, oceans, deserts, and cities. They didn't notice the pressure change. Didn't notice the static in the upper clouds. Troop pods dropped into thick jungle. The Varnkai troopers fanned out in perfect formation, armor gleaming under the filtered sun. Atmosphere stable. Primitive humidity detected. Beginning perimeter scan. Then came the rain. Not a drizzle. A wall. Within 90 seconds, visibility dropped to 0. Sensors malfunctioning. Vines tangled their legs. Mud sucked at their boots. A sudden gust of wind hurled a massive branch into an armored unit, shattering its facial plate. Then the thunder came. A deafening, concussive boom that knocked their comms offline. And then voices in the storm. Human voices. You dropped into the lungs of the planet, freaks. Breathe deep. Gunfire cracked like dry lightning. The jungle swallowed the rest. Didn't notice Earth watching. Varnkai naval walkers descended into the ocean near the Philippines, intending to march on coastal cities. Their exoshells adapted to water pressure, but not salinity, not acidity, not a typhoon. By the time they noticed the pressure shift in the ocean's surface, the sky had gone black. Waves rose like mountains. Lightning stitched the clouds. Entire naval units were swallowed whole as whirlpools formed unnaturally fast. Their distress calls faded under the roar of the sea. In orbit, warning signs. General Vielorix observed the data feeds, which grew increasingly fragmented. Tactical interference is not organic. Clarify source. The analyst node hesitated. Planetary weather systems are behaving erratically. Define erratically. Counteradaptive. Reactive. Sentient patterns detected. That is impossible. But it wasn't. Earth wasn't just alive. It was fighting back. Deployment zone, Central Siberia. Varnkai Ground Unit Theta 7. The Varnkai troop transport ripped through Earth's upper atmosphere with surgical precision, piercing the stratosphere like a fong descending into prey. Their scanners had identified Siberia as a neutral entry point, vast, underpopulated, low in technological threat. The plan was simple. Land, construct orbital relays, and expand westward into Europe by sunrise. They did not plan for the cold. Their data showed atmospheric temperatures at -18 degrees Celsius, a figure considered manageable by their thermal-shielded armor. But Siberia was a liar, and Earth was more than temperature charts. Theta 7's command skiff slammed into the permafrost outside the abandoned outpost of Katanga. The landing displaced a wave of white snow, which instantly formed a low-pressure fog around the burning impact site. Commander Irix Var, who had personally overseen the storming of the vapor cities of Brelin V, stepped out of the troop skiff and blinked at the frost that clung to his visor. Atmosphere reads stable. Deploy Terra conversion modules. Metallic limbs punched into the ice. The hum of conversion began, but the ground groaned. The snow was not snow. It was ice laced with oxygen crystals and trapped pressure. The Terra modules sank 6 inches and detonated a microthermal feedback loop. A geyser of supercooled steam erupted into the air, flash freezing 3 Varnkai engineers where they stood, entombed like statues. The first signs of atmospheric instability appeared 10 minutes later. The temperature plummeted rapidly, far beyond expected variables. -30 degrees Celsius, -35 degrees Celsius, -42 degrees Celsius in minutes. Even the Varnkai armor, forged from heat-balanced graphene composites, began to slow. Servos hissed. Hydraulics stiffened. Fog rolled in, silent, creeping, sentient. Some of the Varnkai began hallucinating. Movement. Heat signatures that weren't there. They tried igniting beacon fires. The smoke froze in the air. Then the wind began to scream. Through the fog, shapes emerged. Not armored like the Varnkai, but cloaked, layered, masked. They moved with the terrain, not against it. Siberian partisans. Human ghost units, descendants of a land that had defeated empires with winter alone, moved between the drifts like predators in white. They had no need to fight directly. They just waited and watched. "Let the cold kill them," said Sergeant Sasha Volkov, wrapped in a sealskin hood, peering through infrared binoculars. "Let the land eat the rest." Commander Irex Var ordered a retreat to the drop skiff, but the skiff's external paneling had frozen. Their atmospheric cores, still running, had cracked from internal heat differentials. When they forced the hatch open, the inside was filled with ice fog. Their pilot was frozen solid mid-broadcast, eyes wide with death. That was when the real blizzard hit. Wind surged past 120 kilometers per hour. Visibility dropped to less than 2 meters. No fire could survive. No beacon could hold. No scanner could track. Varnkai soldiers staggered into each other, slipping on black ice underfoot. Their own armor betrayed them, converting their body heat into conductive death. One fell. Another vanished. Some froze mid-march, joints locked. Others simply sat down and never stood again. Before losing his hands to frostbite, Commander Irex Var attempted a final transmission to GAC Orbital Command. "Weather patterns are predatory. The cold is not passive, it waits. It moves. Earth's climate is adversarial. We are not at war with the species. We are at war with the planet." Only static replied. The wind took the rest. 3 days later, a human recovery team returned to the site. Dozens of alien corpses were frozen into grotesque statues, some shielding their faces, others mid-crawl, forever reaching toward a skiff that would never lift off. One partisan muttered, like Napoleon. Sasha Volkov carved a message into the side of a frozen Varnkai command unit's chest plate. "Welcome to Earth. We don't freeze. We hibernate." She smiled, turned, and vanished back into the white. General Vielorix's mainframe pulsed with frustration. The Siberian detachment was lost. Amazon deployments silenced. Pacific carriers gone beneath the waves. This planet was not behaving as expected. His advisors proposed a correction, a biological purge. Humanity is clustered, soft-tissued, vulnerable to engineered pathogens. Let's cleanse them. Vielorix approved the motion. The delivery vector, a tailored neurovirus called Virex-7. It would attack higher brain functions, empathy, coordination, identity. Not designed to kill immediately, but to reduce human resistance to chaos. What they did not factor in was the wind. 6 pathogen shells were launched into the upper atmosphere, disguised as micrometeors. They broke apart over Polish airspace, dispersing billions of microscopic spores. Varnkai biowar models predicted full cognitive degradation across Warsaw within 12 hours. For the first 6 minutes, the models held. Then the storm came. In the Carpathian Basin, a spontaneous low-pressure system erupted, fueled by thermal imbalance from the earlier drop zones and naturally volatile summer fronts. What followed was chaos. The spores, initially drifting toward their target, were swept northeast by jet stream turbulence. Updrafts hurled them into the stratosphere. Within 2 hours, Virex-7 had spread uncontrollably across Sweden, Finland, Russia, eastern China, the Varnkai forward base in Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan, Varnkai biounits were mid-relocation when the sky turned dark. A strange warmth in the wind, a high-pitched hum in the leaves. Then the sickness. They dropped their weapons. Some removed helmets to analyze air quality. That was the last logical decision many would ever make. Virex-7 was never tested on Varnkai physiology. Its target, empathy centers and emotional regulation, mapped too well onto the Varnkai neural net. They began to twitch, laugh, speak nonsense in dozens of broken tongues. One squad commander performed ballet routines with his sidearm until he wept oil from his ocular socket. Another declared himself a celestial rockmelon. By the third hour, they were turning on each other. By the fifth, they were worshipping the base's atmospheric scrubber as a god. Meanwhile, in Warsaw, the expected outbreak didn't happen. The Polish Meteorological Agency had, coincidentally, issued a windstorm alert 36 hours prior. Schools were closed. Transit slowed. Emergency shelters opened early. The people stayed indoors. The spores blew over. Only 3 cases emerged, 2 of which were mistakenly diagnosed as COVID-29. In Silesia, a farmer named Anka Zielinska watched red fog move across the hills. She lit a candle, closed the windows, and muttered to her son, "That's not our wind. It doesn't belong here." She was right. Later, Polish resistance groups hijacked a Varnkai relay drone and left a message encoded in its memory stream. "You tried to poison us, but you forgot something. This is Earth. The wind doesn't ask for permission." General Villorix watched as entire units, meant to hold Central Asia, collapsed into incoherent madness. "How did it spread backward?" he demanded. His science node, blinking erratically, replied, "Earth's climate is fractal, self-aware in its chaos. Our model assumes control. Earth rewards chaos. That is not possible. Sir, the wind is no master." While the Varnkai scrambled, human forces didn't counterattack. They evaporated. No central hubs. No large-scale maneuvers. Instead, guerrilla cells moved with the wind patterns. Resistance groups formed in the eye of storms. They used the chaos to mask movement, to disappear, to bleed the enemy. Weather stations, long ignored relics, became military beacons. Meteorologists were suddenly generals. Forecasts became battle plans. And humanity learned to read the wind, not to predict it, but to follow its mood. Colonel Elise Mwangi stared at the wind map, her finger tracing a strange zigzag path over Eastern Europe. "Deploy intercept units at these points," she said. "But there's no enemy activity there," her lieutenant argued. "No, but the wind is going there, and the spores follow the wind. We'll intercept them." By the 10th day, Virex 7 was no longer under anyone's control. It had infected parts of the alien fleet. It had mutated in the sulfur-rich swamps of Louisiana. It had learned to break apart in Arctic thermals and reform in tropical jet streams. Eventually, even the Varnkai gave up tracking it. They tried to scrub it from orbit. The storms ate their drones. Varnkai soldiers began fearing the breeze. If the leaves rustled unexpectedly, if the clouds moved wrong, if a gust carried heat instead of chill, they panicked. Some sealed their suits permanently. Others deserted. To the humans, that was victory enough. The Varnkai command vessel Fury of Rolnex floated 5,000 meters above Earth's surface, just outside the roiling mass of Hurricane Gabriel. From above, it looked like a perfect spiral, divine even, a clean, mathematical swirl on an otherwise chaotic planet. To the Varnkai, it was a phenomenon, not a weapon, another flaw in their thinking. They assumed control meant power. They hadn't learned Earth's lesson yet. Power doesn't come from control. It comes from survival. After the viral wind debacle, Villorix changed tactics. Eradicate coastal cities. Disable all launch capabilities. Sink their primitive navies. His tactical drones marked Jacksonville, Savannah, and Charleston as viable targets. The fury of Rolnex's assault fleet, a dozen atmosphere-skimming cruisers and hundreds of exodrop pods, moved into position just outside the hurricane's edge. They planned to flank it, ride the rim. They didn't know humans were already inside. Colonel May Ramirez of the 8th Meteorological Combat Division sat strapped into the cockpit of a stealth ship called Hollow Echo, its wings vibrating under atmospheric strain. Wind speeds holding. Eye is stable. Varnkai advance begins in 6 minutes. Behind her, the ship held 20 elite weather soldiers, engineers, climbers, storm runners. Not traditional warriors. Survivors. Veterans of the New Orleans Reclamation, of the Pacific Wildfire Defense. Trained not to kill, but to guide storms like wolves. She tapped her comm. Begin Operation White Current. The plan was insane. Exactly how humans liked it. Using a chain of retrofitted weather balloons, ion seeding drones, and solar pumps, May's team had nudged Hurricane Gabriel over 4 days, subtly influencing its rotation, pulling it eastward until it aligned perfectly with the Varnkai naval approach. Then they entered its heart. Let the enemy come to them. Varnkai drop pods screamed downward, entering Earth's troposphere like angry gods. One by one they vanished, not to human fire, to wind shear, the kind of invisible horizontal slicing that no energy shield could anticipate. Several pods ripped apart midair, scattering burning debris into the ocean. Others made it through, only to slam into rogue waves the size of buildings. A full cruiser dropped too low. Lightning speared it like a harpoon. It exploded with no warning, consumed by electromagnetic discharge so intense, even its black box fried. From space, it looked like Earth blinked. Inside the eye, Colonel Ramirez gave the order. Send the decoys. Modified hurricane drones, built to mimic heat signatures of human escape vessels, were ejected into the storm wall. The Varnkai sensors locked onto them instantly. 6 ships followed, straight into the eye wall, where wind screamed at 300 kilometers per hour, where water moved sideways, where lightning didn't flash, it stabbed, where radar became static, and inside the chaos, hidden on heat-dead glide paths, the real human ships moved. They fired EMP-tipped javelins into Varnkai underbellies, planted sonic mines that mimicked atmospheric collapse, used storm pressure to slam alien vessels together mid-turn. The Varnkai didn't understand. This wasn't a storm. This was Gabriel. And Gabriel was angry. Tornadic shears tore apart flight patterns. Ocean spray overloaded coolant vents. Ionized static fried navigational AI. Their ships turned on each other, targeting phantom signals, decoys, mirrored echoes, even human screams played on loop. What was left of the assault force fired randomly into the eye. One stray shot hit a human drone cluster. Another hit a weather balloon. A fatal mistake. That balloon wasn't just data collection. It was a pressurized thermobaric reservoir designed to trigger the hurricane's spiral curve instability. In layman's terms, a controlled cyclone rupture. The entire storm front convulsed. Winds doubled. Waves reached aircraft height. The hurricane exploded outward, weaponized. The Varnkai fleet, already broken and scattered, was pulled into the expanding storm like iron filings into a magnet. From orbit, General Villorix saw ships vanish from his command net in clusters. What is happening? This wasn't forecast. His science node responded. No, it was forecast. By them. When the storm cleared, only the hollow echo and 3 human vessels floated inside the exhausted eye. Nothing else remained. May Ramirez activated her beacon and sent one message to High Command. The sea took them. The sky screamed. Earth said no. A human graffiti, found sprayed onto the hull of a downed alien cruiser half sunk in Atlantic waters. We don't control the weather. We dance with it. You try to fight the ocean with math. Welcome to Earth. After the catastrophic losses in the Atlantic, the Varnkai fleet began redeploying inland. Their storm fleet was reduced, but their directive remained unchanged. Secure planetary strongholds. Suppress human resistance. Crush mobility. They believed humanity had fallen back, fled to the mountains, fragmented. In truth, humanity had finally found home field advantage. Varnkai strike teams landed in Appalachia under heavy storm cover, confident they'd neutralize remaining human cells. The terrain looked primitive, rolling hills, dense trees, foggy crags. But they didn't understand what that fog really meant. They spread across ridgelines in formation, launching atmospheric sensors. Static. Thunder cracked overhead. Then came the sound. Not a weapon. A whistle. Old and human. A haunting, lilting signal passed between mountaintops. "What is that noise?" asked Commander Nexuri. The answer came in bullets. The fog wasn't cover. It was terrain. Human fighters, hunters, veterans, and storm runners moved without being seen. They didn't wear body armor. They wore silence. Camouflaged in tree moss and sweat, they used ancient hunting trails, natural choke points, and missed to their advantage. The Varnkai relied on optics and sonar. Both failed in the storm. A sniper fired from a hollowed-out tree, vanishing before return fire could locate the sound. Explosive charges, buried in wet mud, were triggered by falling rain and tremor sensors. Every downed alien body became a trap. Every echo in the canyon was real, or bait. He attempted to regroup, issuing a planetary-wide command burst. All squads, converge on coordinates Theta Black. Form tight combat wedge. Burn the forest. But Earth responded first. A bolt of lightning struck the relay satellite moments after transmission. A nearby oak exploded. The EMP surged through the Varnkai armor matrix, frying 12 units instantly. Nature had jammed their message. Again, a young human scout named Ava Trujillo moved through the gulch barefoot. Her face was streaked with ash, her rifle wrapped in silk cloth to muffle the click of its bolt. Around her, others from her cell moved silently. She tapped her earpiece. Storm front shifting northwest. Enemy sensor drones disabled. Her commander responded. Good. Lead them into the basin. The real storm's coming. In the distance, rain began to sing on the leaves. And in its rhythm, the humans advanced. The Varnkai took position near a river bend, Whisper Basin, named for how wind traveled there like ghosts. They never noticed the beaver's absence. They never noticed the stillness in the canopy. They definitely didn't notice the human fighter laying still under a pile of rotting leaves, a knife in hand. Why aren't they firing? Next Yuri demanded. Then it hit him. This was the ambush, and the signal was the silence. Seconds later, the dam upstream exploded, built by human hands, loaded with old fuel and fallen trees. Water roared into the basin. A flash flood, timed to the second. 30 Varnkai units were swept away before they could lift their weapons. Others fired blindly, hitting only trees. Then the real weapons opened up. Human tactics weren't refined. They were feral. Strike teams operated without central command. They moved with storm patterns, relied on local animals to track weather mood swings. One group even used migrating birds as an early warning system. If they turned too fast, the wind was shifting. The planet was their map. The climate was their camouflage. The war wasn't fought in formations. It was fought in echoes and erosion. A single Varnkai trooper was captured, not dead, but badly concussed. He was found wrapped in thermal blankets beside a fire, left alive deliberately. Next to him, carved in the mud, was this message. We are the fog. We are the rain. We don't hold the line. We move it. He later transmitted this warning to General Villorix. There are no front lines on this planet. Only traps disguised as forests. Only storms pretending to sleep. There's no up. No safe zone. No day without water. No air without threat. In the weeks that followed, the Varnkai combat logs recorded unusual behavior among their remaining squads. Soldiers refused to enter wooded areas alone. Some units began hallucinating weather patterns. One commander accused a cloud of following him for hours. Paranoia reached a point where entire platoons refused to fire unless the target was verified non-fog. The weather had become psychological warfare. Earth didn't just fight them. It unraveled them. General Villorix was desperate. Earth's terrain had become unreliable. The forests hunted them, the oceans consumed them, and the storms had taken on patterns his fleet's meteorological AI couldn't model. He needed a kill zone, open, flat, with no terrain for humans to hide. His advisors offered one word: the plains. He approved immediate deployment of the Oblivion Line. 40 AI-driven walker units, 10 aerial skimmers, and 2 orbital relay towers for atmospheric override. It was a mistake that would cost them half their armored fleet, because the humans weren't hiding in the terrain. They were hiding in the storm. Colonel Darnell Roan of the 4th Weather Warfare Division stood atop a derelict grain silo in Oklahoma, scanning the horizon. A massive thunderhead rose like a black tower in the distance. Perfect, he whispered. Behind him, the fields were lined with ancient lightning rods, rusty irrigation towers, and abandoned oil pumps, all repurposed. Every rod now connected to a massive grounding field. Every tower fed power into hidden capacitors. And above it all, the sky churned with electrical hunger. "Initiate thunderclap," he ordered into his comm. The Oblivion line approached just before dusk. Towering walkers, each bristling with anti-personnel cannons and autonomous drone hives. They advanced methodically, confident, sure of visual dominance, thermal superiority, and overwhelming mass. Then came the static. At first, their scanners merely glitched, small anomalies. Then their ground radar turned black. Then they lost GPS lock. Then the lightning started. A bolt snapped down with such force it shattered the atmosphere like glass. It struck one of the lead walkers, directly on its sensor mast. The energy overloaded its internal AI, frying decision nodes and igniting its fuel bladder. The machine fell sideways into another unit. Both collapsed in a smoking heap. "High voltage anomaly," a Varnkai officer reported. "Redirect formation. Increase EM shielding." They advanced another kilometer. Then the whole sky ignited. Lightning didn't strike at random. Not anymore. The humans had mapped the plains for resonance points, locations where natural charge wanted to leap downward. They'd seeded those points with grounded metal, heat spikes, and atmospheric lures. They didn't guide lightning. They invited it. The storm followed. 10 bolts in 60 seconds. Each one found a target. Autonomous Varnkai walkers lit up like living fireworks. Then came Phase 2. Human drones, small, bat-shaped gliders, released EMP chaff clusters into the air just as the main relay tower lit up with a massive electric discharge. This was no normal storm anymore. This was tuned chaos. The EMPs disabled everything without a human hand on the wheel. The Oblivion line's walkers paused, hesitated, then powered down entirely. In that moment of silence, Colonel Roan's voice came through the hacked Varnkai comms. "This is Earth. We don't fire first. We fry first." Human troops, hidden beneath farmland trenches and wheatfield shelters, burst forward like lightning-made flesh. They weren't heavily armed. They didn't need to be. Every alien machine was blind. Some were even paralyzed from internal logic loops, repeating the same movement over and over in panic. Explosives were placed with surgical precision. Plasma lances fired into soft joints. Wires were cut. Ammo compartments ignited. The plains became a graveyard of titans. In the end, less than a dozen Varnkai units made it out of the kill zone. One escaped walker sent this final log to orbit. "Sky is weaponized. Atmosphere itself has been co-opted. We are fighting not soldiers, but the planet's rage." When the log played on the orbital command deck, even Veolorix remained silent. His primary advisor node flickered, its predictive AI overwhelmed. "We have never encountered environmental synchronization of this magnitude." "You said this species was fractured," Veolorix growled. "They are, but the planet isn't." The general stared at Earth's swirling clouds and lightning-scarred surface through the viewing window. And for the first time, he whispered, "We invaded the wrong world." General Veolorix stood at the edge of the Sky Bastion's grand viewport. Beneath him, Earth turned, blue and green and swirling with 1,000 storm systems. But it no longer looked beautiful. It looked hostile. The storm systems weren't dissipating. They were concentrating. Orbit-to-surface heat spikes were forming in coordinated patterns. His advisors were silent. He now knew why no race had ever tried to colonize this planet before. It wasn't just inhabited. It was armed. It began as a shudder across the ionosphere. The outermost shell of Earth's atmosphere surged with electromagnetic flux. Waves of radiation spiked without solar triggers. Human scientists had long called them ghost storms. Now the Varnkai learned what that really meant. Communications blacked out. Drone relays lost synchronization. And then something fired upward. Not a missile. A pulse. One human-engineered atmospheric buoy, tethered to magnetic waves and pressure differentials, sent a focused electric charge directly upward. It struck a Varnkai orbital stabilizer array. The entire port side of Sky Bastion rippled with internal explosions. Earth didn't just use its oceans, winds, and forests. It used orbit. Thousands of decommissioned satellites were still circling the planet, dead eyes, cold steel relics. But humans had left a few sleeping guardians up there, experimental magnetocoil arrays from an old atmospheric shield program. They'd been reactivated, and now they were falling. Across low orbit, the Varnkai fleet was hit by a storm of machines. Abandoned weather satellites, reprogrammed meteorological drones, defunct solar collectors, all turned into kinetic missiles by Earth's gravity and directed toward the largest heat source, the Sky Bastion. The flagship's orbital shield engaged. Too late. 6 impacts in 2 minutes. Hull breaches. Deck collapses. Structural destabilization. In the command room, VA Lorix was hurled against a bulkhead. His auxiliary limbs snapped under gravitational recoil. Red steam hissed from his cracked helm. His crew screamed as secondary reactors failed. But Earth wasn't done. From the surface, Colonel Elise Mwangi, operating the Stratoslur array, initiated the final command. Begin Zeus cycle. A global chain of magnetic towers, powered by the weather itself, created an upward draft so intense it ionized the entire path from sea to space. For 5 seconds, Earth shot lightning into orbit. Yes, into orbit. It wasn't natural. It was war. The Sky Bastion, crippled and spinning, was struck by a solid ion discharge across its dorsal plates. Artificial gravity failed. A core engine ruptured, and the ship, flagship of a galactic empire, fell. It didn't explode like in the movies. It burned silently, screaming across the upper atmosphere like a falling god. People in Argentina saw it as a second sunrise. People in Japan saw it as a dragon bleeding flame. People in Kenya raised their hands to the sky and whispered, "We told you. This is our storm." The Sky Bastion tore itself apart over the Pacific. Pieces fell for hours, some into the sea, some into volcanic ridges, some into the waiting arms of thunderclouds. There were no survivors. Shortly after the fall, Earth's satellites intercepted final Varnkai command transmission, garbled, panicked, fleeing. A human station responded. The voice was clear, calm, tired. It was Colonel Roan. To all Varnkai forces still listening, you invaded the only planet where the air moves. You brought fire to a world where fire is seasonal. You came with steel and reason, but we have something older than machines. We have weather. Nothing more came from the stars that night. The storms quieted. The clouds shifted. And for the first time in weeks, it rained gently over the fields of Earth. Not as a weapon, as peace. In the final chapter, humanity begins to rebuild, not as victors, but as partners with their planet. The Varnkai retreat, leaving behind husks of machines and warnings to the rest of the galaxy. Never invade Earth. Because when humanity is cornered, the planet fights with them. The war was over. No treaty. No ceasefire. No surrender. Just silence. The Varnkai retreated beyond Earth's orbit, their once pristine fleets gutted, their algorithms burned by unpredictability, their soldiers too terrified of fog, of wind, of lightning. In their final communiques to the galactic archives, one phrase echoed above all. Earth cannot be conquered, because Earth is not a world. It is a will. Across the continents, the skies began to calm. The hurricanes receded. The firestorms died. Floodwaters fell back into rivers. For the first time in weeks, Earth exhaled. The survivors emerged scarred, scattered, but unbroken. They rebuilt not cities, but networks. Not empires, but ecosystems. Climate scientists became heroes. Farmers became generals. Children spoke the names of wind currents like old gods. In Nairobi, solar towers rose that bent weather patterns to replenish dry lands. In Louisiana, swamp engineers built homes that breathed with the storms. In Patagonia, a school taught students to track wind not with tech, but with their skin. Humanity didn't send a threat back into space. They sent a message. A satellite bearing a single plaque, engraved in hundreds of languages, alien and human. We are not alone on this world. You think we fight with weapons, but we fight with thunder, with ocean, with sky, with the breath of the earth itself. We do not control this planet. We belong to it. And if you come again, you will meet the storm. A human girl sits beneath a storm cloud that refuses to move. It isn't raining. It's watching. She smiles. Collision enjoyed the story of how Earth turned the weather into a weapon? Then don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more epic sci-fi stories where humanity refuses to bow down, even to the stars. Drop a comment below. If Earth was a weapon, which part would you use? Fire, flood, storm, or silence? And remember, we are the storm, and the galaxy just heard us roar.